Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. I just wanted to clarify something, because from time to time I go to the office of the Consulate of Belize. Am I viewed as a public officer?
Yes, sir. You're an employee of the government of Belize.
Getting a paycheck.
Paid by the taxpayers of our fair country.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to what we talked about earlier. Basic ground rules. If you're interested in raising a question, to my right, there's a mic. Mr. Griffith is in fact managing that mic. There will be one question.
Yeah.
One and only one question. You will in fact the Prime Minister will in fact respond to that question. Once you've completed raising your question, we ask that you move away from the mic. There won't be a second chance for the rephrasing of that same question, or even a new question. You're given one opportunity. I ask that we confine ourselves to that agreement, to that understanding, and that we be civil about the whole issue. Having said that, those of you who are interested in raising questions, to my right, you may start.
Just before the questions, my chairman just reminded me that, in fact, I don't blow my own horn loudly enough, and that I ought to have said that in consequence of the monies we've accumulated, and again in keeping with our vision to empower the Belizean people, for the first time, this administration has chartered a National Bank of Belize.
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir.
We've begun with $20 million. The capitalization, the equity is all contributed by government, and half of it goes to public officers and teachers, reserved for them, the other half to the general public. We will in fact be putting in some more capital infusion before the end of the year, and we've commenced our loan program by concentrating initially only on mortgage financing. But we're lending for new home construction at the unbelievably low rate of 5.5%. Now the commercial banks are up at 8 and 9, and even the credit union can't match us. And what we hope to do is, for now, the bank is only operating as a lending institution, but we want to turn it into a full service institution, so we'll start accepting deposits. And as we do that, and as we grow, the pressure that we will put on the commercial banks to bring down their lending rates is going to be tremendous. And so the Belizean consuming public, the borrowing public, will benefit greatly from, again, what I have to say was an absolutely visionary move on the part of your government. Again, they had told me, just as with the food pantry program, you know, when I said I was going to do that as part of the social justice, the officials said to me, just as they said when I told them I was going to renegotiate the external debt, oh, you must be crazy. Poor people want thief. They want buy the food for you at half price and sell it for near to full price. Those that administer the program want thief out them. Absolutely nothing like that has happened. It has worked wonderfully. I was told you can't do the National Bank. You get all sorts of opposition from the commercial banks. Take the money and put it in a DFC. But in fact, we have chartered this national bank. It's off to a fast start, and I have no doubt that it will succeed handsomely with respect to the twin objectives: to lend our people money at low rates and to force the commercial banks to lower their rates. Thank you.
My name is Joyce Welch, and Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, I just want to thank you for taking back our country for the Belizean people, because it angered me, you know, when I found out that all our major, you know, the telecommunication and all that was being sold to private people, and I'm thinking, what will the Belizean people own in Belize? So I just want to thank you very much for, for doing that. In 2010, when you came, I asked a question about the land. At the time, there were land where multiple people were owning the same piece of property. And you had mentioned that you guys were aware of that and that you would be looking into that and I guess possibly doing something. I did not hear anything concerning that, and that is affecting me. So I would like to find out what progress have we made in that area.
I believe that the Lands Department, unfortunately, is another hotbed of corruption. The administration has tried to do something about the officers who, through dishonesty rather than incompetence, or perhaps in some instances it's a combination of both, end up in a situation where, and I was down in the village of Santa Familia over last weekend. That village is part of the constituency that the minister that we've had to fire represents, and so I was out there doing some canvassing, and there's this huge problem of exactly the dimensions that the lady has described, where one man has worked the land, has crops on it, but others were given papers to that land, papers signed by the minister, but based upon an assessment done by a lands officer who put in writing that the land was free and clear. When he visited the spot and it was obvious that there were crops on it, there's only one reason why he falsified the report. So, ma'am, I don't know of your particular circumstances, and I certainly can't tell you that the generalized problem has been solved, but I think we have made some progress in, well, for the first time, I think like 4 lands officers were actually fired. The difficulty, these people are public officers and constitutionally they have tenure, so you can't get rid of them except you go through a process that sees you bring administrative charges. There must be a hearing before the Public Services Commission, who seems to be very reluctant to fire public officers. And even when you do that, they run to court, they get lawyers who say, oh, well, the proceedings were flawed, the Public Services Commission didn't do it properly. But we actually succeeded in firing about 4 of them. And we're moving out a number of others. So going forward, the problem will not be as acute. Now, where a case has already occurred, it's a little difficult because ultimately, if somebody got title when there was a pre-existing ownership, the title would have to be seen as having been issued in error or as a consequence of fraud, and the court will set aside that second title and recognize the first title. The difficulty is you have to get to court, and that is costly. But in a situation like that, the ministry can't really solve the problem, because if the ministry comes down in favor of the previous landowner after having issued a second title, the second title holder will sue the government. And if the ministry comes down in favor of the second title holder, the first title holder will sue. So ultimately, the only way in which any decision that the ministry tries to make can be vindicated is by way of some sort of a court ruling. And as I said to some extent that's unfortunate because there are legal costs associated with that. But that's what it is, unfortunately, in terms of cases that, as I said, would have already occurred. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful than that.